This Choircast podcast is brought to you by the book Too Much and Not Enough, Sacred Thoughts Said Out Loud by Karen Schock. This book is for anyone who has big questions about God and is feeling like a misfit among the people who seem to have it all figured out. Journey with me as we dive into the hard stuff and ask the questions no one else seems to want to ask. Available now on Amazon.
Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? Damn. Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Gabie.
Gabie, if you died tonight, do you know whether or not you would go to heaven or whether or not you would burn for eternity?
Damn.
And the explicit tag on this episode.
Right. Before I feel like I could confidently tell you I thought I was going to heaven, and now that I'm deconstructing, I'm probably have paved my way to hell. So,
I mean, they're like... Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the hell is so huge in the event, like, and so traumatizing, right?
I triggered when you asked me, to be honest. Yes.
I didn't prep you ahead of time for that.
He didn't tell me he was going to ask me this.
I'm so sorry.
It's totally fine. We can talk about it, though.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah, I mean... Hell to me was one of the biggest things I felt like held me back from truly being okay with not knowing where I stood on my beliefs now. Mm-hmm. I feel like in the beginning I was like, well, I can't deconstruct because hell. Like, right. I was like, you know what? It's better to just believe in the off chance that I'm wrong.
Right.
And then I remember telling this to my boyfriend. He's like, oh, so the illogical fallacy of Pascal's wager? I'm like, huh? What's that?
And what is that?
Right. I mean, I think he was a philosopher of the 17th century of some sort, right? And so I think his view is that it's kind of like a bet. Like, it's better that we just choose to, we can't prove or disprove God, but it's better to just believe because the cons or the pros outweigh the cons, right?
Right.
And so it would be better to, if it is true, you at least are guaranteed security in heaven versus if you're wrong, you have then damned yourself to hell forever.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I have stories.
I have stories
you
too.
Have where...
Yeah.
What one comes to mind first of the I was listening to the Hellfire and Brimstone.
But actually,
right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know. I think his name's Bill Wise. He has a 23 Minutes in Hell. I got into a period of my evangelical journey where I was watching sermons and videos on YouTube all the time, like when I ate, before I slept. And so got very much into hell. And I remember this guy, he basically had he's very popular on YouTube, but he had either a dream or something where it was like he had an out-of-body experience where God took him to the literal underground and like to hell, and the things that he experienced were terrifying.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I don't know, like I also had, like, what is it called, like, what insecurity, whether you're saved or not. There's a term for this. Like, I forget. Yeah. There's actually a book about this, like Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart by J.D. Greer, actually, I think is his name. Okay. And like, I would always pray, like, I just got to make sure that I'm saved.
Yeah,
like,
no, listen, if I calculated it, it's easily over 100 times that I got saved.
Yeah. Oh,
like, easily.
I mean, I've been baptized 4 times. I mean, I clearly had some insecurity about
I got saved 4 times one night.
Oh.
I'm not kidding. That is really, that happened. I went to this play called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames.
Stop.
And it was horrifying.
Yeah.
And like, and so I went down and I got saved, and then I went to another person and got saved again 4 times one night.
Yeah, that's crazy. But like, oh my gosh, like the fear, right?
Yeah.
That one is praying and going up to the altar and being hands on my head, prayed over so many times. Cause I was like, I don't want to be I can't. I don't want to be burning forever.
Right. Do you remember what is your first memory of burning forever?
Oh, I mean, my church, my Bible study, I should say, at Ohio State.
And let's be clear, we're actually going to get into like where this comes from. We'll get there, but first we need some catharsis.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my Bible study was like, people didn't like, so our Bible study very much on campus, like people didn't like going to it because it was very intense, right? The crew one was very much suave and like, okay, Jesus loves you. But like every time, I swear, after this meeting we'd have every week, I would feel deep conviction. I mean, I'd be crying at the end of our sermons. Like that's how convicting it would be. And I remember there was one about turn or burn. Like where do you, like the question you just asked me, like if you died tonight, do you know where you'd go? And like there'd be an altar call at the end. People are crying, like saved, So yeah, I mean, I very much believed that, like, okay, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. And so I wanted all my friends and family to, of course, be in heaven with me, or at least where I thought I was going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have a friend. She's actually part of our Not Church group. Her name's Gabie. She went to a Christian high school, super conservative Christian high school in the Deep South. They had a day that was Hell Day. And in a class, they would make it completely dark. They would tell them to imagine that they were burning. And then they would play, no lie, for 30 minutes, a recording of people screaming in agony. Yeah.
Like, why?
To traumatize children, obviously.
But like, you now need to spend years untraumatizing yourself. And I don't even think you'd ever be okay. Like, did you recover from that?
And every year. Not once, every year.
That's crazy. No.
Yeah.
Like, I even myself, this is crazy, but like, even when I get up in the middle of the night, I'm like scared I'm going to see a demon like looking at me. I'm not even joking. Like, because the way that my church would focus so much about like hell and demons and how they can possess you, like attack you. I'm like, and even though I've deconstructed, I'm like, okay, pretty sure this stuff isn't real.
Right.
I am still afraid of it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's crazy. I mean, I think one of the things that also really scared me, like, because I would read my Bible religiously. Like, I've read the New Testament multiple times.
Yeah.
Old Testament was hard to get through. I mean, I would get to Leviticus. I started talking about the tabernacles. I started disassociating. I'm like, all right, I'm going back to the New Testament. But I remember, I think it's Matthew 7 or Matthew 10. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was the verse where allegedly God is saying, like, many people will come to me on this day and say, Lord, Lord, do you not prophesy in your name? Do you not cast out devils in your name? And God's response is, depart from me, for I never knew you.
Right.
And I'm like, how do I know that God knows me?
Right.
Like, how do I know this won't be me? Like, it would scare me so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that idea is something called eternal conscious punishment.
Oh yeah.
And and eternal conscious punishment is something that is just logically and ethically problematic, right? Was that any part of like your deconstruction of like finite sins, infinite punishment?
I haven't looked into that stuff
so
yet.
like the idea is, the idea for a lot of people who are deconstructing is I'm your depart from me reference is definitely going to be a video I'm working on. So I just had to write it down. A lot of people they say like, how is it just for a God to punish you for forever for something you did in a finite mortal lifetime?
Oh, I have heard this. I didn't know it was called that.
Yeah. And so that, because the forever punishment is called eternal conscious punishment, right? It lasts forever. You are conscious during it, right? And obviously it's punishment. So, and it's not like, oh, you're just going to be bored. Right.
Right.
It's fire.
Right.
Like, what did you ever have somebody like describe it in detail to you?
Yes, like eternal fire, burning, agony, maggots crawling up your skin. I mean, I don't know about you, Jeremy, if this happened to you, but my mother decided to buy a movie that was called Escape from Hell.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you've seen this movie.
I have not.
It's awful.
Thank God.
And she showed it to us. I mean, I think I was like 13 and my sister was 10 years old or something like that. Showed us this movie. And this man basically ends up going to hell. Like the depiction that we saw. I mean, my sister, who was very much not into like religion, went and got baptized the next day. She's like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm like, I was scared too.
Of course.
And so, yeah, the description is and the guy I told you, 23 Minutes in Hell, Bill Wise is his name. Like he himself describes it very graphic. Like it's not just like some people have said, oh, it's separation from God, but that's not what I hear from these. Like there's so many views, but I've tend to have heard like the burning forever.
Right. Well, and that's what they use to control, manipulate, to say like, oh, you have to continue being part of this, even though you are being traumatized, you need to stay engaged because otherwise you will burn forever for eternity, which is an interesting concept. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's frustrating to me about the whole doctrine of hell as presented by the conservative evangelical church is that they also want to say you read the Bible literally, right? Exactly what it says, and then that is your basis for the Bible has to be your basis for what you believe. Right? So in the Old Testament, the word that is sometimes in really bad translations translated as hell is the word Sheol.
Yes.
So, and stop me if you know any of this and you want to describe, you're totally will. You can, I'm just going to do the monologue for a second.
Yeah.
And feel free to interrupt me with questions or like, no, you're an idiot. That's wrong.
No.
So Sheol is the realm of the dead.
Yes.
They believed in a flat earth. Underneath the earth was Sheol. It was also called the deep and the waters. And so when you died, everybody went to Sheol.
Yeah.
And it was sort of described as like a negative to neutral experience, right? But not a lot of detail.
Right.
Just descending to the dead.
Right.
So that's the Old Testament. That is nothing like what I heard about hell. Like, not anywhere close.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't know if you were going to talk about Gehenna next.
We'll get there too. We'll do New Testament next.
I just remember like being confused as to what Sheol was, and what you described is kind of what I understood from back then when I was investigating the difference between like is Sheol and Gehenna the same thing? Like I wasn't sure.
Right.
And then I know Gehenna is an actual place that has now been used to refer to hell, I guess, in the New Testament.
Right.
And then, I'm so sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I don't know if we're going to talk about Jesus went to hell and grabbed the people like when he resurrected. Did your church talk about it? Because my church preached a sermon about this.
Okay, cool. So let's do that story when we get to Gehenna.
Sure.
Okay, so so when you go to the New Testament, there's another couple of words that can be translated sometimes as hell. Again, in bad translations. Okay, so let's just be clear. So let me see. Actually, Gehenna is the next place.
Yeah. In
the Bible. Wait, nope. Matthew 5. Okay. Then Matthew 11. So we're gonna go with Gehenna first. Okay. So Gehenna is an actual place. It's the Hinnom Valley.
Right.
And there is a popularized thing to say that I said before I was corrected, not directly, but via TikTok by Dan McClellan. So there's a popularized thing that it was a trash dump, that they burned trash in, there was blood there, and there was dogs there was gnashing of teeth, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't used as a trash dump. until much after Jesus. So that actually doesn't really work. But the Gehenna, the Hinnom Valley, that is the like transliteration is, which transliteration is when you take a word in another language and you use the letters of the language that you are speaking in to translate the sound of the word into this language. So Gehenna is one of those. And so Gehenna, the Hinnom Valley, was actually a place where in the Old Testament, kings, the sort of disobedient kings, went and made child sacrifices there. Right. So it's polluted,
right?
Like in this deeply polluted, evil spiritual sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so when Jesus uses Gehenna, he is not talking about some thing that exists in some other dimension, right? He's like, that over there, like the Gehenna right there, right? It's a symbol of like just awful disobedience of God, killing children,
right.
All of that, right? But your story, I think, is way better.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I wanted to say, very interesting that this was referred to as an actual place, and now we're seeing again meaning shifting here, right? So now it's referring to in the afterlife, the eternal forever torment of the afterlife.
Right.
And so the story, the sermon that we were taught, and so it had to do with, is it the rich man Lazarus, right? Who was
okay. So this is Hades. Okay, so let's wait.
Oh, sorry.
We'll do this one next. Let's do it. I'll give the word, and then you tell your story. So the word is Hades.
Okay.
Now you grew up in school. Did you read any Greek
yes,
mythology?
we
right
did.
About Hades, right? The river Styx. You go. You pay the guy on the boat. He's going to take you. Hades is the realm of the dead. Again, all of the dead.
Yeah.
And when you go to Hades, if you've had a pretty good life, you'll have a pretty good experience.
In Hades?
In Hades.
Okay.
In Greek mythology.
Right.
If you've had a not great life, if you've not been the best, you will have a punishment in Hades. And so you've got the story of the guy who rolls the rock up the hill only to have it go back to the bottom, and he has to roll it up again for eternity. Right?
Oh, wow.
That's one of the like Greek things. So Jesus has this story when in Luke 16.
Yes.
Rich man and Lazarus. So overview of the story basically is there's a rich man and there's a super poor, starving guy named Lazarus.
Yeah.
Rich man gets no name because Jesus is petty like that, right? And so the rich man is very wealthy, and it says that Lazarus was longing just for the scraps from his table, which is interesting because they didn't have paper, right? And they didn't use paper towels to wipe their mouth. The rich would use bread, and then they would throw it on the ground, and the dogs, their pets might come and eat it. But there's literally bread on the ground under this guy's table, and Lazarus is like, if he would just give me that, I could live.
Yeah.
But the rich man like leaves and goes, does not pay Lazarus any attention. Lazarus dies. The rich man dies. They both are in Hades. Why? Because Hades is the realm of the dead. Jesus is not talking about hell. He's talking about Hades because everybody at that time understands the story.
Yeah.
Because they are immersed in this culture that has this mythology that everybody knows. Okay.
Yeah.
So Jesus isn't like introducing something new. He's calling an image to people's head so that they can. He's making a bigger point. He doesn't need to describe hell. He's like using Hades so that he can make his point. So rich man is in Hades, and he is in this pit. He's thirsty. And right, this sounds like the guy rolling the stuff up the hill. He's thirsty, and he looks up, and standing above him is Lazarus and Father Abraham. Now, in that culture, they associated your status in this life with your holiness and the holiness of the people that came before you. So a rich man was thought to be higher or holier than poor people. Like poor people has done something wrong, or their family had done something wrong that caused them to have that kind of life.
Yeah.
So what people are expecting in the afterlife is to hear that the rich man is having a wonderful time and that Lazarus is having not a great time, because the rich man was obviously holier than Lazarus, but it's this reversal, right? Lazarus is with Abraham, which so it's not even Lazarus having a good time. Lazarus is like with Abraham, and the rich man, and this is like, so like, I did not grow up wealthy, right?
No, neither did I.
Yeah. And like, I have seen this. This is so accurate to the real world. The rich man assumes that Lazarus is the servant of Abraham.
Oh.
And he says, Abraham, get him to bring me some water. Like, Abraham, get your boy to come down here and give me some water.
Yeah.
Right? And Abraham's like, bitch, please. But again, this is talking about, the point of the whole story is that, like, look, your wealth and your poverty have nothing to do with how holy you are.
Yeah.
What it has to do is, like, if you have extra bread, you're giving it to the poor. That makes you holy, right? Lazarus, the guy that everybody thought was like unholy, actually is the holy person. So like, but that's not the way the story was told to you.
Oh, well.
Right? The going to whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember because now I'm remembering. So Hades is mentioned in the New Testament.
Oh, yeah, it's Hades,
okay.
but Hades is not hell.
Right.
Where we know what Hades is.
Well, people interpret it. This is why I was confused. I'm like, we have the words Hades, Gehenna, and Sheol. Are they all hell? Like, it was unclear to me.
Right.
And so I cannot remember if the sermon was referring to Sheol, Hades, or Gehenna.
Right.
But the hell. So pretty much the sermon that was preached was that when Jesus, like after Good Friday, when he died, I think it's Sheol actually. Now it makes sense.
All right.
He went to Sheol to grab all the people who didn't, because what happens to people who died before Jesus resurrected? Like, are they like, no, Jesus went and got them from
Out of hell.
Yeah.
Which, how horrible is God to send people to hell just because Jesus hasn't come yet?
I guess because Sheol is just like a waiting place. That's how they justified it. It's not actually hell. Like they were in a waiting place or the underground, I should say. And actually, I know this is a popular dogma out there because I was just looking at Dan McClellan's Data Over Dogma podcast. And one of the question titles is, did Jesus go to hell? And I think it's referring to literally this sermon that I'm talking about. So that was what was told. I was like, oh, so I guess all the people back then, like Adam and Eve and Abraham, are all good now because Jesus went and got them.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. But the thing is, so all of this stuff is this, it's using things that people knew to make a point that is nothing about the afterlife. Now, at the time, there were like 3 bigger views about what happened in the afterlife, because they were struggling with this question of, in the New Testament, they were occupied by a foreign power. They felt that was unjust. I mean, there was lots of injustice at the hands of the Romans, right? Like the practice of crucifixion itself, right? Like that was horrible. And so the question that they were having to struggle with is like, if our God is all powerful, if our God is all those things, like why aren't they not getting punished, right? How is this evil empire increasing and how are these people being rewarded when we are being sort of like impoverished? So like they had a handful of things. First, some of them were annihilationists. Like it was you died. If you were bad, that was it.
Yeah.
You're done. Which it feels like at least the scholars that I've read say that it feels like Paul is most likely that.
I've heard that, from what I've been reading.
Right, because he doesn't talk about any sort of eternal anything for the wicked at all. It's always like the eternal stuff is for the believers, and so like, so it appears that like, okay, that's this like annihilationist perspective, and then there was this idea of like temporary conscious punishment, that like you were really bad and you were crucifying people, you'd be punished for a minute and then be fine. And the sort of least popular at the time was eternal conscious punishment, but it wasn't around at that point. And then later, and so like later you had this really interesting viewpoint, because once Christianity becomes a movement, right, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Right. And if in order to not experience eternal punishment, you had to be part of this tiny movement, God is genocidal maniac, right?
Yeah.
And so for a long, long time in early Christianity, there was another view that I first learned about from Rob Bell, blessed be he.
Yes.
Where it is that the choice to follow God is an eternal choice, and it continues after you die. And after you die, if you want to do that, you can continue to be included in God's family even after death. And so like that means that like the sacrifice of Jesus is not bound by anything, including death. Then there's a third perspective that is like the universalist perspective that says like, no, Jesus died for everybody. Yeah. Everybody gets it. We're good.
Yeah.
When it says he conquered death, hell, and the grave, all that stuff, like it means like it's actually done. Like that's over. Yeah.
Yeah. From what I've read, that's what I understand universalism to be. Yeah. Everyone is saved at the end.
Which is not what we grew up hearing.
No, at all. It was very much an exclusion list. Did you or did you not say,
right,
that if you ask Jesus into your heart, or if you believe that you have been, all your sins are forgiven, then you will be saved.
It's kind of like cliques in high school, right?
Very much. I mean, Christianity, or I would say the evangelical movement, is very much an in-group, out-group type of situation, right? And so like if you were in the in-group, you get all the benefits, but if you're out there, it's like, oh, this person is not part of us. They don't get to benefit from what we get to benefit.
But speaking of Rob Bell, like we'll have a little segment here at the end, talk about this book, Love Wins.
Yeah.
You read that book?
I did.
When did that enter your world?
Yeah, so I read Rob Bell's book early into my deconstruction. I think it was maybe book number 2 after I read When Religion Hurts You. Great book. And it was a very different perspective than I'd ever read about before. When he was basically saying like, what he basically said, like, doesn't matter what religion you are, Jesus died for all of us. And I was like, oh, this is quite different than what I've heard. And so I very much enjoyed his perspective because it was just so new and refreshing. And I thought it was really insightful. It's a small book. Like it was easy to digest. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And Rob Bell, because I'm old, so I was a fan of Rob Bell from very early on. He was just a pastor that was like speaking at conferences for a minute.
Yeah.
And changed my life at the couple of conferences before he had published anything. But he was like a darling of the evangelical movement because he was one of these pastors that he would talk about cultural context and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That book was it. Nobody, he was labeled a heretic. Yeah. Like he wasn't invited to those conferences anymore. And it was over for him.
Yeah.
But it was also a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course, the second you deviate from what's the general understanding, people are going to label you a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
But I think what he wrote was very insightful and a different perspective. If people would just think about it for a second, right? Like, let's just think about what he has to say.
And that's the thing, is that like ideas are not dangerous. Like it is not, you are not going to go to hell because you read a book and had thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, I highly recommend Rob Belt's book, Love Wins.
Yeah.
It is brilliant.
It's very good.
And it's accessible, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I always appreciate books that like take on a hard subject, go deep, and then like, but you're like, oh no, yeah, this is accessible. We can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend that. And there's so many other books I have on my list about hell. Like there's a book I found on Goodreads. There's like Deconstructing Hell and all the different perspectives. Because once you start like looking into it, I was like, oh, it seems like this was constructed because people felt like life was unfair and wanted them to be punished somehow. So we're just gonna stay in the afterlife,
which is a natural human response, right? Like there's like this very not surprising, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Gabby. I am just going to say, if you died tonight, I think you would go to heaven.
Oh, I appreciate that. I want to believe so. I feel like my view of God has like been all over the place. Is he authoritarian? Is he loving? Like where are we at right now, you know?
Yeah.
And what about you? I'm going to reverse the question and ask you. If you were to die tonight, where would you feel like you'd go?
Listen, I have no idea. Yeah. But I'll tell you what most of the commenters on TikTok think is I'm definitely going to hell. Yeah. Roller skating to hell was my favorite comment.
Stop it.
That's right. But if you go into our not church group thing that we do on Discord, I feel like they would all say that I'm going to heaven.
Yeah.
If they believe in heaven, if they believe in anything, which is great because like that's the one thing is that like when you were talking about not believing in demons and spiritual stuff like that. In our not church group, there are people that definitely still believe in that in these like beautiful ways. And that's one of the things that I love about it is that like everybody's welcome and everybody seems to try to learn from people even if they don't agree with them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really nice.
Yeah. And so if you're listening to this and you want to be part of that kind of a group, I think you'd love it. It's $3 a month and you go to patreon.com/skepticpastor, patreon.com/skepticpastor, and it's $3 a month because nothing's free. But it's only $3. So you pay for what you get. If it doesn't work for you, just stop paying. And, you know, it was only $3. And if you're listening to this podcast, give us all the stars. Make a little words about us. You know, maybe you want to say that we're going to hell. That's okay. Just the words. No, there's not any such thing as bad publicity. All right. We'll see you guys. That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place. Okay? We'll see you next time.